Hello, my name is Samuel Redman. I am a professor of history here in the Department of History, where I also direct the public history program. And today I'd like to share with you my big idea, which is that even very small objects can have an enormous impact on the course of American history. And I'd like to talk to you about a set of objects that are particularly fascinating to me called Indian peace medals. So my new forthcoming book is called Tarnished Promises, Indian peace medals in North America. So between the 1700s and the 1800s, all the way to the end of that century, Spanish, French, and British diplomats carried with them silver medals that had a picture of the king or queen, and they gave these medals or awarded them to tribal leaders across North America in order to win favor, to assure alliances, and to smooth over potential conflicts. Now, if you had a British medal or if you had a French medal, that would suggest one way or another your alliance. And you might keep this medal and hand it down intergenerationally to a child, or you might even be buried with it. So interestingly, Lewis and Clark carry 89 medals with them on their journey across North America. And in their diaries, they say, "We're really glad that we did, because on the way out back, we're running out of supplies. And we need to trade with native people and build up these new alliances." So famously, they carried with them medals that had the image of Thomas Jefferson on them, which becomes the most famous peace medal ever distributed. Years later, in my hometown, in 1869, workers are digging up the main street, and they discover what they think is a Native American grave. And on this grave, prominently, is a Thomas Jefferson peace medal. So I became curious, how could an object that is so intensely colonial also become, in this way, sacred to Native people? So I started doing archival research as well as digging into this story by doing a series of interviews with Native leaders and thinkers around the country. So Ryan Spring, who's a historian and member of the Choctaw Nation, explained to me simply that the exchange of a peace medal was about respect. He said it all comes down to respect. A peace medal represented an exchange between equals. But as we know, the dynamic here was rarely equal, and it becomes more and more imbalanced over time. And yet these objects continue to transform and change over time as they're given from one generation to the next, bought and sold in some cases, dismissed, tossed away. There's a lot of interesting sort of differences of opinion. But I asked, how could an object that's so intensely colonial, it's got a picture of the queen on it, become a native object in this way? And Marie Richards, who's the repatriation and historic preservation specialist for the Sault Ste. Marie tribe of Chippewa Indians, said to me, "If it's ours, it's a native object. Whether we made it or used it, we create its meaning. Our possession of it makes it native. We have agency with our personal items and our landscape. We transform a place or an object into nativeness by giving it its meaning and cultural context." So eventually I decide to go back to where this all starts in, for me, my hometown, where the Prairie Island Indian community had discovered that, or knew that medal that I'd mentioned being found on Main Street had been taken from their most important and most famous leader, Chief Red Wing. And that medal had been dispossessed from the tribe and taken to a historical museum in St. Paul, Minnesota, where even copies of it were sold in the gift shop. But years later, I got a chance to meet with this community and talk to them about how they had returned this medal. And one of the most amazing things that they said to me from the jump of this conversation was, "Would you like to meet him?" And what they meant was, would you like to meet this peace medal that belonged to Chief Red Wing, who is now a member of their community? They did not see it as an object in the way you and I may see a silver object. They saw it as something else, that it had transformed and will again transform, because the community is having to decide if it is going to, for the first time, not take an object found in a sacred grave and put it back in the ground. The community is thinking, this object is so special and represents this collective meaning to us that maybe it should be on display somewhere. So Frankie Jackson, the Tribal Preservation Historic Officer with the Prairie Island Indian community, shared with me, it forces us to get creative. we have to think anew about some of our traditions. But Noah White, a Dakota member of the community and another tribal preservation officer at Prairie Island, just simply shook his head and looked at me and said, "It just makes me feel happy that the medal is back home." So much like a long lost relative, we can follow these stories and understand how objects can shape and redefine American life and who we are, but it also depends a great deal on our perspective and how we think about these things. So medals may be very small in terms of their size, but they had an enormous consequential impact on the history of the United States, and it causes us to think in different ways about who we are, where we've been, and where we might be going. I'm Sam Redman, and that's my big idea.